that good?
It was,
yes.
yes.
It's good. Today we are celebrating Heather's newest book, Love in the Squared Circle. Yay! Yay!
I wish I could show you the real book right now, but I don't have it yet. Hopefully it comes in a couple weeks. Yay!
Yay.
And I will be unboxing that and posting it.
Fun.
So, yeah.
So exciting. That's exciting. Very exciting.
Yes.
Well, Heather is going to share with us a little bit about her book, and she's going to read us a tasting. So I'm excited.
I'm going to read what?
A tasting of your
A
book.
tasting of your book.
Oh, okay.
Tasting
I
of
was
your
like,
book.
what did you just say?
She's going to give us a sneak
A
peek.
sneak peek.
Yes. Well, first of all, Love in the Squared Circle. A squared circle is a wrestling ring, just so you know, because the main hero in the book is a professional wrestler. And don't stop the video now, just because I said professional wrestler. Don't put down the book. In fact, go to Amazon and click buy on the book.
There you go.
Because everybody who's read this book that is not a wrestling fan, which is most of the people in my life, have gone, I really love this book. And I didn't think I would because there's a wrestler in it. But they do. So go ahead. Don't let that stop you. And I am going to read to you from not the first scene, but like the second scene in the book. And it is
It's from like the second half of the first scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like just the first scene from a different perspective.
Yes.
And it is from Blaine, the professional wrestler's perspective. The wind knocked out of Blaine as surely as if he had been punched in the gut. What little boy put his disappointment aside to console his parent? What prompted his understanding of such complex emotion that he even understood the need? If the voice asking after Maverick's whereabouts had been whiny or demanding, it would have faded into obscurity along with the other similar sounding voices Blaine Sterling heard all day at these meet and greet events. But it wasn't either, and for that reason alone, it snagged his attention. Turning from the table where he waited for his photo op times with the fans to begin, he glanced in the direction from which the plaintive voice originated. Blaine raised one eyebrow as he found the little boy with the sad voice. The child had addressed his mother, but he hadn't expected the woman and son to be alone. Fathers and sons were staples at events like this. Rare occasions brought the moms with them. Sure, there were plenty of female fans, but generally they didn't attend on their own. And it didn't take one hand to count the number of times he had seen a mother and son combo coming to enjoy the show. Without thinking it through, Blaine moved to stand behind the pair. Whether it was the wide eyes that stared up at him, or the not-so-subtle way the boy edged closer to his mother, the woman was alerted to his presence and turned her head to look over her shoulder. He knew the moment she saw him because she stood, turned to face him, and pulled her son closer to her side in one graceful move. She eyed him warily and pushed a wavy strand of strawberry blonde hair over her shoulder. Can we help you? The little boy tugged on her hand. Mom, that's Blaine Sterling. While her son spoke the name with something near awe, the woman seemed unimpressed. The look on her face didn't telegraph fear, but it did border on cautious nervousness. He had seen it a million times before when meeting people in person. From his hair to his height, everything about him was carefully planned to intimidate in the ring. But that often translated to life outside the ring, too. Blaine stuck out his hand with what he hoped was a reassuring grin. The woman paused before offering her delicate hand for a brief shake. If he focused on her son, maybe she would see there was nothing to be concerned about. He looked down at the boy and grinned. So you know who I am, do you? You're the champ. His head bobbed emphatically with his words. My dad and I watched you win on TV, but I'm going to see Maverick wrestle tomorrow. We're going to Ring Wars 24. I won't have to watch it on TV. I get to be there. Blaine smiled at the way the child specified the title of the company's biggest show of the year. He'd probably been counting down the days with his father. And is your dad going to watch Ring Wars with you tomorrow? That sounds exciting. The woman's posture stiffened as she slid an arm around her son's shoulders. Blaine wasn't sure if the motion was meant as support or a shield. A sick feeling twisted his stomach into knots as the boy's eyes filled with tears that didn't fall. The quivering lip returned as he spoke. My dad's in heaven. And we're going to stop there.
This little boy, Jay. Oh my goodness, you guys. I have a 5-year-old boy, okay? And he talks nonstop, like all day long, from the very moment he wakes up in the morning until he finally goes to sleep at night. He is asking me questions, telling me things, talking. And when I'm reading this story, I'm like, Heather, you stole my son and put him in your book 3 years from now, but also with a love of wrestling instead of all things vehicles and cars and construction. And it, like, I could just picture him because he reminded me so much of my little boy. Like, you did such a good job. Such a good job.
I love Jay.
Yes.
I loved writing him and his energy and his innocence.
Yes.
At one point he asks something that he wants to happen that is completely inappropriate in an adult's world, but in a kid's world, it's like totally, he wants Blaine to spend the night. And, you know, how do you tell a little boy that his new friend can't spend the night?
His new friend, who is this, like, how tall is he?
6'5".
6'5" wrestler with long ponytail and a beard and muscles and a leather jacket that goes all the way to the floor, you know.
Yes. Who else do you have come spend the night with your kid? You know?
Perfect babysitter.
But Blaine is more than meets the eye in the story. And that's part of what makes the story what it is. Yeah. Because very much I feel like we sometimes get caught on looking at the trappings, looking at what we see rather than looking at what God sees. And so that was a real motivating factor in this story. But I do love Jay. And I had 3 boys of my own. So I also have a girl who didn't quite act. I mean, little boys act a certain way, and it's different than the way little girls act most of the time. But one of my sons in particular really had that kind of Jay personality. And so even though my kids are grown, it was going back to them and their ways of doing things, their ways of looking at the world. And so that's kind of where that came from.
Okay, so tell us when and how you actually got into watching wrestling.
I am a wrestling fan, yes. And basically when I was growing up, back in the Hulk Hogan, Junkyard Dog, all of those guys that most people our age at least know of. My brothers would watch wrestling, although they deny it now. And they're like, how do you ever watch wrestling? Yes, as a little girl, I sat down and watched wrestling on my own. No, my brothers watched wrestling.
My dad and brother would watch it sometimes.
Well, and it didn't really bug me because I was kind of a tomboy anyway. And again, I grew up in a house with 2 brothers. So things were very boy-oriented a lot of times. And so then later, as my husband and I became friends with a couple, Retha and David, they invited him over to watch wrestling. And they're like, okay, you can bring Heather too. She can talk with Retha. They can do crafty stuff, you know, whatever. And so I went over and sat down, and I'm making constant commentary on the moves and the clothes and the, wow, can he even speak English? Because whatever he did, it was not good, you know, and things like that, and just having a good time. But as I continued to go over, because we would go over anytime there was a pay-per-view and watch the pay-per-view with them and eat dinner and just kind of hang out with friends. So it was a good time. As we started doing that, I started paying a little more attention, and it was like you saw these guys that, like, this guy that's 6'5" and 250 pounds, that's not unusual. You have some little guys in wrestling too, but then you see people, there is a wrestler that is about that size, and there's another one that's like even bigger, and I mean giant of a man. And to watch them at one time run across the ring and dive over, like flip over the top rope and land on the people outside of the ring together. I mean, it was like watching synchronized swimming, you know? That's how in sync they were. And these people that should not be able to do, I can't do anything like that. I've never been able to do anything like that. it struck me, these are very athletic people.
Mm-hmm.
These people do things that don't make any sense for people of their size.
Mm-hmm.
And how athletic it really was. And that kind of got me into it. And of course, there's a storyline. Sometimes a storyline makes about as much sense as a soap opera.
Because it is.
It is. It's a soap opera with people fighting, you know. But that kind of drew me in as well. That whole storytelling element of it, to the point that our friends, like, he's like, you know, the writers wrote it that way, right? And I'm like, yes, but you know, you're supposed to suspend your disbelief and just watch and let yourself totally sink into it. And I'm watching it the way you're supposed to. So that is where my like of wrestling came from. And in watching these, for the story itself, reading the biography of a wrestler that became an outspoken Christian and still stayed in the wrestling world, and that idea of how does a Christian live in the wrestling world, because there are some things that, you know, aren't necessarily the nicest, most Christian things that happen. And then as well, looking at these big guys that are so intimidating in the ring. And then, yes, I follow some on Instagram, looking at their Instagram feed, and there's this one really, really big guy that I Blaine is not that character, but physically I modeled him after him. And he's super intimidating in the ring, but then I see him cuddling and playing with his kittens on Instagram, and it's like, whoa, okay, that's different. And so seeing these things, and then that faith element in there too, those kind of blended together and became the inspiration for the book. So
awesome.
Can tell. I've read it. I love it. I loved it. And I am not a wrestling person. I'm not. But like, you quickly get over that when you get to know the characters the way Heather's written them. It's really good. You have a question?
I don't think so.
You don't have any questions at all?
She's not read it.
I haven't read it yet. I'm sorry.
She was busy.
I was
In her
busy.
defense,
Yes.
she was editing and finishing up her own edits.
Yes.
So being part of my launch team was
Everything.
not able to happen this time.
Yes. But I am very excited to read it, though. It's on my list.
Good, good.
But seriously, check out Heather's new book. It comes out April 19th. And it is totally worth it. And if you check a few days in advance, it's going to be even cheaper for the ebook. It'll be $1 off. So grab it then and get to have a better insight into the world of wrestling and the romance that can happen there.
Which doesn't sound like it goes together.
It doesn't sound like it goes together, but obviously it does. If a wrestler can cuddle kittens, he can fall in love too.
Yes, there you go.
So be on the lookout for that. Stay tuned, because we are going to do a bonus video for this book, and Heather is going to quiz us on some wrestling terms, and there might be some thumb wrestling. There might be.
Oh my goodness.
So come back for that.
Surprise!
Follow our channel, like the videos, share it with other people who you think might like wrestling romance, and
even if you don't think they will, share
it anyway, because you know, we're just sharing the wrestling love right now. We are. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.